You know that feeling when your whole life is just background noise? That was me. Just this quiet, unassuming guy running a pie stand off Highway 93 outside Copper Creek, Montana. I was invisible, which honestly I liked. But sometimes, when you're invisible, you get to see things others miss. And what I saw, what I realized, was that the whole sweet huckleberry-scented world I lived in was built on a lie. And I was about to either blow it up or get buried under it. My name's Elias Vance, but everyone just called me Eli. My world revolved around one thing. My grandma Alara's famous secret huckleberry pie. It wasn't just food. It was a lineage, a prayer, a history baked into a buttery crust. We're talking flaky perfection, a balance of tart and sweet that made grown men cry. But in Copper Creek, baking wasn't just baking. It was a blood sport, and the reigning champion was Sylvie Thorne. Sylvie was the pie queen, a local legend. Her bakery, The Peak, was massive. She ran the local agricultural cooperative, and her Mountain Peak huckleberry pie had won the county fair golden ladle 6 years running. Sylvie was all charm, all dazzling smiles, and the kind of sharp, calculating eyes that could cut glass. She embodied the town's success, which meant she embodied the town's power. And she hated my little roadside stand, not because I was competition, but because I was a nuisance, a reminder that a tiny spark of real, unmarketed tradition still existed outside her empire. My life was simple. Mix, knead, bake, sell 4 pies, go home. That was the ordinary world the books talk about. But the quiet life ended the day the co-op needed me to pick up a last-minute shipment of sugar. I was down in their basement, this dank, musty storage area, when I stumbled over a loose floorboard. Underneath, it wasn't some forgotten stash of vintage moonshine, no. It was a battered ledger, the kind with thick, yellowing pages clearly years old. And what was inside, man, it just stopped my heart cold. It was Grandma Alara's handwriting. Her signature little flourish, her specific notes on chilling the lard. And there, meticulously copied out, with only the slightest modification to the sugar content, was the recipe for Sylvie Thorne's famous Mountain Peak huckleberry pie. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a verbatim theft dated 30 years ago, right when Sylvie moved to town and started her winning streak. I just stood there, the dust motes dancing in the one sliver of light, clutching that book. It felt less like I found a recipe and more like I found a crime scene. See, my grandmother and Sylvie, they had a falling out years before I was born. A quiet, community feud over something vague. Now I knew. It wasn't vague. It was a betrayal. It was everything. My first thought? Throw the book in the creek. Go back to my stand. Stay invisible. What did I care about Sylvie's title? I just focus on my own pie. But then the fear hit. The realization that my whole self-worth was wrapped up in that recipe, the secret legacy. If her success was based on stealing my past, then my entire future felt tainted. This wasn't about a trophy. This was about justice for Alara, about the very soul of Copper Creek's baking tradition. The hesitation didn't last long, because Sylvie has this incredible, almost theatrical timing. She drove past my stand the next morning, a huge, shiny SUV, and actually pulled over. She didn't even get out. She just rolled the tinted window down enough for her voice to drip out. "Eli, darling," she purred, and you could hear the acid and the sweetness. "That crust of yours is getting thinner every year. Maybe stick to bread? Some people are just destined to be small-town background noise, right?" That was it. That snide remark, the casual cruelty, the way she dismissed my grandmother's craft as background noise. That was the moment I stopped being Eli the baker and became Eli the reluctant warrior. I wasn't going to just ignore the ledger anymore. I closed my stand that day. I drove straight to the Grand County Fair office and signed up for the competition. I was going to beat her at her own game, in front of the whole county, using the very thing she thought she'd stolen and buried. The gauntlet was thrown, and I, the invisible man, was suddenly and irreversibly in the war. The easy life? Over. The confrontation had begun. The moment I signed up, the air in Copper Creek changed. The first obstacle wasn't the recipe, it was the rules. Sylvie, using her influence as the co-op head, which controlled all the premium, locally sourced ingredients, had quietly revised the competition rules. All entrants must source 90% of their fruit through the co-op supply chain. It was a beautiful, elegant form of sabotage. She knew I only used the wild, high-altitude huckleberries that grew outside her jurisdiction, and now I couldn't. My hands were tied. I was furious, trying to figure out how to bake my grandmother's pie with her subpar, mass-market berries. That's when I met Juno. Juno wasn't a baker. She was the ghost of a critic, a famously cantankerous food columnist who retired here years ago, largely because she'd had a public, venomous feud with Sylvie back in the day. She was bitter, sharp, and totally brilliant. I found her nursing a coffee the color of motor oil at the diner. I didn't even have to pitch her. I just showed her the ledger. She squinted at the handwriting, grunted, and said, "Thorne always did steal more than just recipes. She steals confidence. You want to beat her? You need a mentor, and I need a front-row seat to her downfall." Juno became my drill sergeant. She didn't teach me baking. She taught me psychological warfare and how to find the flaws in Sylvie's fortress. The tension was tightening like a spring. We discovered the truth was bigger than a stolen recipe. Sylvie was using her co-op control to quietly buy up and undervalue local farms, consolidating land and power. My fight for a pie was now a fight for the economic soul of the town. My internal goal shifted from simple justice to stopping a corporate takeover cloaked in a buttery crust. The pressure cooker blew at the midpoint. Juno and I cornered Sylvie in the deserted co-op office late one Tuesday night. I put the ledger down, the evidence of her original sin, and she didn't even flinch. She just chuckled a low, throaty sound that was pure ice. "Oh, Eli, you found Alara's old notes. Sweet. You think a ledger changes anything?" She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the mahogany desk, pure arrogance dripping off her. "I built this empire, darling. I innovated. Alara just sat on her porch. Look, how about this? I'll buy your stand. For triple the market value. You retire, you bake for fun, and this silly little book disappears. We're both happy." I looked at the woman who had stolen my past, and whose stolen success was suffocating my town. My blood was boiling, but Juno's lessons kicked in. Don't react, counterattack. It's not about the money, Sylvie. It's about the truth. I told her, my voice low and steady. You didn't innovate. You just photocop it. And you didn't just steal a recipe. You stole the trust of this community. I'm not backing down. I'm going to beat you with a huckleberry pie. Sylvie just smiled, that terrifying shark smile. A pie that you can't even bake properly now, thanks to my ingredient rules? Good luck with your little rebellion, Eli. You're going to need it. And she was right. Everything started to fall apart. Sylvie counterattacked fast. She leveraged her co-op board to publicly discredit Juno, suggesting she was a drunken, biased hack, which drove Juno into a furious retreat. Then, someone accidentally destroyed the cooling unit at my stand, ruining a batch of pies and shutting me down for 3 days. I was broke, defeated, and staring at the ruins of my life. The vulnerability, the fear of failure, had returned tenfold. I was ready to quit, thinking Sylvie was unbeatable, that maybe my grandmother's legacy was just meant to be a forgotten thing. Juno showed up at my shack later that week, not with a pep talk, but with a smack of tough love. "Stop it, Elias," she snapped. "You're acting like Alara's recipe is the magic spell. The secret isn't the pie, you idiot. The secret is the baker. It's the skill you have, the talent you've been too scared to show the world because you were hiding behind her shadow." That was the key. My personal breakthrough. I realized I didn't need the stolen recipe, and I didn't need the subpar co-op berries for that recipe. I needed to let go of the past and embrace my own talent. I spent the next 48 hours in a frenzy, creating something entirely new, a layered, complex, unexpected pie using ingredients Sylvie couldn't control. Wild rye flour from an independent farm and tiny, tart wild currants from the North Ridge. It was Eli's pie, my own creation. The day of the Grand County Fair, the atmosphere was thick, not just with humidity, but with expectation. Sylvie, radiant and smug in a pristine white apron, watched me from across the table. I presented my pie, the rye and currant revelation. It was different, darker, earthier, and subtly complex. When the head judge, Mayor Theron, took a bite of my pie, his eyes went wide. Then he tried Sylvie's Mountain Peak. He hesitated. Finally, Theron stepped up to the mic, his voice shaking slightly. The golden ladle goes to Elias Vance. Sylvie's smile evaporated, replaced by a look of sheer, cold fury. She stormed over. "What did you do?" she hissed, her voice barely a whisper, yet loud enough to feel like thunder. "That wasn't Alara's pie. That wasn't the recipe." I met her eyes, no fear, just calm finality. "No," I said, loud enough for the camera crew right next to us to catch every word. "It wasn't. This one's mine, Sylvie. The original is safe, though. And by the way, I used the co-op's flour on this one. But my berries were just better." I gave her a small, genuine smile, the first one I'd felt in months. The consequences were immediate. The pie was superior, proving I didn't rely on the stolen recipe, and my subtle hint about the co-op supply chain was enough. The town council started looking into the ledger and the land deals. Sylvie resigned from the co-op board a week later, quietly disgraced, her empire crumbling not because of a single document, but because her theft had been surpassed by genuine, original talent. I didn't take the Pie Queen title, though. The trophy sits at the diner now. I just went back to my stand. But I wasn't invisible anymore. And for the controversial final twist? Before the fair, Juno and I decided the best way to truly dismantle Sylvie's legacy was not to keep the old secret, but to make it public. So, I took Alara's original, perfect huckleberry recipe, the one that Sylvie stole, and posted the whole thing on a free community blog for anyone in Copper Creek to use. Some people call me a hero for giving back the tradition. Others say I destroyed my own competitive edge and disrespected my grandmother's history by giving away a secret that should have stayed special. So, tell me, was I right to release the recipe? Was it justice? Or did I throw away a valuable legacy just to spite one woman? What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about small-town feuds and the sweet taste of revenge.